evening, good evening, good evening. My name is Reverend Dr. Vincent E. Stokes II, and I am the pastor here of the New Sardis Primitive Baptist Church, and I want to welcome each of you to God's house at this branch of Zion. Thank you for coming to this great event. We are reminded of the prophet that tells us, what does the Lord require of thee? That ye love justice, do mercy, and walk humbly with your God. And with that, we know that you will get excited about the various subjects that will be presented to this evening. I just want to encourage you to be mindful that this is our sacred space, and we want you to maintain the sacredness of our space. So please be mindful of your tones and mindful even of your language in our sacred space. Amen? Amen. Amen. And shall we pray? God, we say thank you, for you are gracious, good, and kind. And Lord, we pray for this great event, oh God, that we will be able to get clarity, Father. For your word reminds us, in all our getting, let us get an understanding. So let us get an understanding in this space, oh Lord, as we hear more ideas and hear more about all the things that are going on with the police commission around surveillance, oh God. And even when our passions become excited, oh Lord, we pray that we are able to control ourselves in a space that is sacred. We ask this prayer in Jesus' name. Amen. And I now introduce to you the moderator of this great event. He is on the police commission. His name is Mr. Pete Van Leer. Mr. Pete Van Leer.
Thank you, Reverend Stokes. And thank you and the Cleveland Clergy Coalition and this church for welcoming us into this space. I'm not actually the moderator. I will introduce the moderator shortly. But I am a member of the Police Commission, and so I'd like to thank everybody on behalf of that. And I want to welcome you all into this space. Thanks for being here. I know there's a lot of things you could be doing tonight. It's a beautiful night out, so I really appreciate you being here. You're an important part of this meeting, of this session. So the issue of surveillance technology and how it's used, it's a matter of I think, of utmost importance to the city, to everybody who lives here, and to the Police Commission. So I'm looking forward to the discussion, to hearing from all these people who are involved in one way or another in this work, and from hearing from you all. I want to thank some folks who are here, Black Lives Matter, organizations and people who've been involved in pulling this together, and actually in a lot of the work of the Commission and the Surveillance Technology Work Group that looks at the policies that govern this work, the surveillance technology. So Black Lives Matter, Cleveland State University College of Law, the ACLU of Ohio, the Social Justice Institute at Case Western Reserve University, and the Cleveland Division of Police. So they're all going to be here. They're all here on the front panel tonight, and that's just that's that. So as you may know, Cleveland voters a couple years ago gave the new CPC, different powers, and part of that is final authority over general police orders, and that includes orders that govern the use of technology. So I mentioned the work group we have, and we have several members here tonight. And we have community members on that group. If anybody's interested in learning more about that, please reach out to me or talk to me tonight. And we have the final authority over what those policies look like, how the division uses those technologies that we're going to be talking about tonight, like ShotSpotter and automatic license plate readers and things like that. So we work collaboratively with the Division of Police, but we also have the ability to talk about, to make some decisions about how things are used. And ShotSpotter is an example of that. We recently passed out of the Commission a revised ShotSpotter policy that helps tells the division how that can be used, and they use that to instruct the members of the division, the officers, how to use it. Other than that, just a couple final quick notes. I want to thank our staff who are here tonight. We have Martin Belat, Ryan Walker, and Jason Goodrick on our staff, and John Adams, our co-chair for the commission. If you could stand or hold up your hand. He's here tonight, and he's the leader of the commission, along with co-chair Sharina Zayed. So he's really been helping facilitate and provide space for a lot of good work that's happening. With that, I'm just going to introduce Professor Aisha Bell Hardaway. She is actually our moderator for tonight. She's a professor at the Case Western Reserve's University School of Law, and her research focuses on criminal law, policing, and the intersection of race and the law. Her most recent work examines legal efforts to remedy police misconduct and abuses through federal intervention and community oversight. She has served on the monitoring team for the Cleveland Consent Decree and is the director of the Social Justice Law Center and the Case Western University's Social Justice Institute, where she works with students and the broader community in the exploration of pressing social justice issues through research, community conversations, guest lectures, and curricular offerings. So, Professor Hardaway, it's all yours.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Pete, and good evening. Thank you all for being here with us tonight for this important conversation. We know that these discussions are essential to healthy and effective government, where elected and appointed officials are both receptive to hearing from its community constituents and responsive to their concerns. We're grateful to the elected and appointed officials in the room present to do just that tonight. And we recognize that none of this work can be done in a transparent and accountable manner without an actively engaged community. So many thanks to those community members who are here in attendance tonight. This work is not possible without you. With that, please allow me to introduce, we have a large panel, as you all can see. Please allow me to introduce our panelists. I'm gonna try to do it in alphabetical order, although we had some additions, so forgive me if I script a little bit. Sorry, Pastor. First, we have Sergeant Ball. Sergeant John Ball is currently the officer in charge of the Mobile Support Unit, and is Sergeant Ball here? Oh, good. Okay, great. And is responsible as the wearable in-car camera administrator for the Cleveland Division of Police. He was appointed to the division in 2009 and served in the 3rd and 4th districts, as well as the training section, and served as the special events coordinator before being promoted to sergeant in 2016. As a supervisor, Sergeant Ball has served in the 4th district and the Mobile Support Unit. He is a graduate of the Certified Law Enforcement Executive, CLEE, and holds an Associate's of Applied Science in Criminal Justice from Eastern Gateway Community College. Next, we have Gary Daniels. Gary Daniels, who's on this end, is the chief lobbyist for the ACLU of Ohio, where he has worked for 25 and more years in various positions, including 15 years as the Ohio State House lobbyist. His work covers a large variety of civil liberties issues, including those involving the intersection of policing, surveillance, and privacy. Next, we have Sergeant Jose Garcia. Sergeant Garcia is there on the end. He's a 23-year veteran of the Cleveland Division of Police. He spent his first 14 years of his career as an officer on basic patrol right here in the 4th District. He then spent the next 4 years working in the Technology Integration Unit, where he helped implement and manage the record management system and field-based reporting software. In 2018, he was promoted to sergeant and was tasked with Was tasked with establishing and managing the Real-Time Crime Center. All right. We in for hello? I appreciate you guys. Check, check. I just want for TV 20, is it okay if I just speak loudly? No. Does it matter if the microphone is echoing in the room? Will you still get? There's more mics. I know there's more mics, y'all. I want to, because if I go from one to the other, I just want to know: is it okay if I lift my voice into this microphone, even if it's not echoing now? Okay, great. I'll keep it. Thank you. Okay, I appreciate it. Thank you. Where was I? Latanya Goldsby. Hi. Latanya Goldsby was born and raised in Cleveland, Ohio. Over the past 8 years, she has taken on the role of an outspoken activist and community organizer, deeply rooted in seeking solutions on how local police departments interact with African American communities and communities of color. Through her activism and community organizing, she helped build Black Lives Matter Cleveland chapter, where she's now the co-founding president and continues to fight for change by creating legislative initiatives and policy recommendations that will improve the quality of life for residents in the city of Cleveland through grassroots organizing. In 2021, she and families directly impacted by police violence formed Citizens for a Safer Cleveland, a coalition of local grassroots organizations to create a citizens-led ballot initiative to amend Cleveland City Charter to create real police accountability. Issue 24 passed overwhelmingly with 59.61% of the local vote in Cleveland. Ms. Goldsby's work on issue 24 led to the opportunity for her to become a part of the newly elected mayor's transition team, where she worked on the Public Safety Task Force. Currently, she's still involved with the implementation of issue 24. Next, we have Larry Jones. Larry Jones is here to my left. Larry A. Jones II joined the City of Cleveland Department of Public Safety in July of 2010 as a project manager and quickly rose to the title of IT Program Manager, Assistant Commissioner, and now Deputy Commissioner. He is responsible for managing public safety, IT staff, applications, and infrastructure that supports the divisions of animal care and control, EMS, fire, and police. Born and raised in Cleveland, Ohio, Mr. Jones has his project management professional and certified information system security professional certifications, as well as an MBA from Cleveland State University and a bachelor's degree in business administration from The Ohio State University. Next, I have Commander Counts. Ron Counts is the commander, he's here, is the commander of the Bureau of Homeland Services, Cleveland Division of Police, where he has worked for over 30 years, first as an officer in basic patrol and later serving in various district supervisory assignments. Commander Counts is responsible and supervises such units such as airport security, city hall security, intelligence, crime analysis, real-time crime center, aviation, bomb squad, and Marine Patrol. These units provide infrastructure security for Cleveland and provide direct support to other division units. Next, we have Brian Ray, who is there. Brian Ray is Associate Dean for Faculty Development and Online Programs and the Leon and Gloria Plevin Professor of Law at CSU College of Law. His research focuses on cybersecurity, data privacy, and AI regulation and ethics. He is the principal investigator or co-principal investigator on over $4 million in research grants related to cybersecurity, data privacy, education, surveillance technology, and pandemic preparation response. He co-founded and directs the Center for Cybersecurity and Privacy Protection and created and directs the online Masters of Legal Studies in Cybersecurity and Data Privacy. He serves on the Cyber Ohio Advisory Board, where he co-drafted Ohio's first in the nation incentive-based cybersecurity law, as well as on the Ohio Attorney General Facial Recognition Task Force. SC Magazine named him one of 3 outstanding cybersecurity educators in the 2017 Reboot Leadership Award. Next, I have a late ad, so forgive me for reading from my phone, but we're very, very honored to have with us Deputy Chief Jarrett Schlott. On March 26, 2024, Jarrett Schlott was appointed to the rank of Deputy Chief by Cleveland Mayor Justin Bibb. DC Schlott began his career with the Cleveland Division of Police in 2007, where he was assigned to the 6th District, serving in basic patrol and as a detective investigating violent felony crimes, as well as a member of the crisis negotiation team. He was promoted to sergeant in 2017, where he supervised officers on basic patrol in the 2nd District, and later to the Chief's Office Commander's staff. Where he was promoted, Commander Schlott was promoted to the rank of lieutenant in 2020, where he served in the Chief's office as the officer in charge of the Internal Affairs Unit. In December of 2022, he was promoted to rank of commander of 3 of the 1st District. I think I read that right, Commander. All right. Oh, Commander of the 1st District, not 3. Got it. He's raised by a single mother in Southwest Detroit, Michigan. He attended Central State University, where he received a Bachelor of Arts degree in criminal justice. And he's a graduate of the FBI National Academy, the Federal Bureau of Investigation National Academy, the Police Executive Leadership College, and the International Association of Chief of Police Leadership in Police Organizations. Would you all please join me in giving a warm welcome to all of our panelists? All right, I'll try to get my life together. Okay, in terms of the order of presentations for tonight's events, I just want to give you all, I see more people have come in, thank you and welcome, give you a preview of how things are going to go. First, we'll hear from members of the Cleveland Division of Police, as well as the City of Cleveland, who will provide information about the technology currently in use, along with the description of how that technology is being used. It's anticipated that that initial presentation will take approximately 20 minutes. From there, each of the remaining panelists will have 5 minutes to provide an immediate response to what we learned from CDP tonight, as well as any other remarks that they may have to share. We'll move to a period of moderated questions, but the thing that I came here for after we have the moderated questions is to hear questions from all of you. And so we'll conclude with a Q&A session from the audience to clean up anything that was not covered in the initial presentations. There are microphones here in the space. I'll talk more about the expectations for the Q&A portion when we get closer to it. With that, I'll turn it over to CDP for your initial presentation.
All right, thank you, Doctor. So on behalf of the Chief Director of Public Safety, Drummond, and Chief Todd, we're here to represent the Division of Police and Public Safety, and we're going to provide the best information we have. We're talking about a subject that is constantly changing, just like our world is changing with new technology that keeps coming on. So we've been behind the times in Cleveland. We're catching up quickly. And based on statements that Mayor Justin Bibb made at the promotion ceremony today, we wanted to highlight the great progress the Division of Police has made in the past 2 years to modernize police operations with new tools and technology. We are focused on continued improvements to do a better job in Cleveland, enhance our engagement with community groups and residents, and that's where our strength is. So we're going to focus not just on technology, but being able to work with groups. Is that mic working? No. Test.
That's not our system, it's their system, so we're trying into it, so if we don't hear it in the room, we don't.
Test. Okay. Thank you. So our agenda today, we're going to cover the wearable camera system first, the in-dash camera system, the gunshot detection system that the City of Cleveland has, the Safe Smart Camera program, which has been in use now for years, and was also part of the LED enhancement program that you see on the streets here. Brighter lights, less electricity. License plate reader system, and finally, we're going to cover a video management system. So we'd like to start off with Commissioner Jones, and he's going to cover the first several items here.
Thank you, Commander. Good evening, everyone. Yep, so when we talk about wearable camera systems, so essentially body-worn cameras. So one of the things I want to bring up is that the city was one of the first major cities back in 2015 to actually deploy body-worn cameras. So during that time period, we actually visited a couple different cities, figured out what worked, what didn't work. We went through a request for proposal process. So essentially, we invited vendors to come in, show us their technologies, formed a committee, actually had local citizen representation, actually a member from the NAACP at the time, sat on the policy committee as well, vetted those solutions and settled on our current vendor. One of the things I want to mention is that as it relates to the body-worn camera, every member of the division is issued a camera. So essentially from the chief down to the patrol officers.
I think he's fine.
Yep. Yep. So from the chief to all the way down to the patrol officer, everyone is issued a body worn camera. One of the things when it comes to that video on that device, integrity and making sure that video isn't edited or changed in any way. So essentially that camera has an encryption code. From the time that video is recorded to the time it's uploaded into our cloud storage solution, if those encryption codes do not match, that video isn't accepted. So that was one of the things that having a system of integrity was very important to us. One of the other things we focus on is that the expectation is we move to 12-hour shifts. So the body-worn cameras have a battery life of basically 12 plus hours. As the commander mentioned, we're not new to this space as it relates to body-worn cameras. We're currently on a third iteration of body-worn cameras. We're actually looking to do an upgrade sometime end of this year going into the first quarter of 25 with our fourth generation of body-worn cameras. So as it relates to a technology piece, it's been tried and true, and we've actually seen a decrease as it relates to the Office of Professional Standards when it comes to citizen complaints via officers. So not only has the body-worn cameras provided that accountability, but also it's provide video for the Office of Professional Standards when it comes to reviewing those not criminal code, but citizen complaints. Just to give you an idea of the type of numbers we're experiencing, so in 2023 alone, we had 594,000 videos uploaded. So if you're talking about a police force of probably about 1,200 officers, we're talking about 500,000 videos. When you're thinking about hours of video of somebody watching that, that's basically 128,000 hours of video. And data-wise, that's 223 terabytes. So I'm an IT person. That may not mean anything to you guys, but trust me, that is a lot of data that we're recording on these devices. And these devices come with their own storage categories. So it's not like the video's recorded and disregarded. Videos have to be categorized. So whether it's a traffic citation, whether it's a citizen engagement, whether it's a homicide, all these videos are categorized and then retained based on those retention policies, which the commander will mention later, which can be found in the policies. So that's just a brief overview of where we stand at with body-worn cameras. One of the things I want to bring up is in-car dash cameras. So again, this is a technology we weren't new to. So actually probably about 2009, 2010, we had an in-car camera system. Back then, in-car camera systems were probably about $17,000 per installation. At the time, we probably only had maybe 20 or so vehicles equipped with in-car camera systems. Today, we've equipped over 250 vehicles with in-car camera systems. We're in the process of training our frontline officers, going through the training to activate and make these units live. I think Sergeant Ball informed me that as of today, 80% of the division has been trained on the in-car camera system. It ties directly into the body-worn camera system, so it has the same back-end storage. Videos are tagged and categorized, so there's records retention. And then I would say one of the important things that I want to point out is that the system has automatic activation. So whether the gun rack is released, it could be due to speed. If we're traveling, say, over 80 miles an hour, the camera's automatically going to activate. So there's built-in triggers that will allow these cameras to activate, so we're not waiting for the officer to activate it. So essentially, anytime those lights and sirens go off, that camera's going to activate. So that takes the thought process, the muscle memory out of the hands of the officer and allows them to be reactive and proactive as they're doing their jobs.
All right, so gunshot technology is the next one. So rather than just focusing on the name brand, this is a product that serves a purpose, and that's to identify and locating gunshots. So that's a couple components there. First off, it has to have the detection capability using microphones to actually pick up a shot. Now the shot is analyzed on the computer and it's sent to a remote facility where they analyze it and actual humans listen to it. So that all occurs within about 60 seconds, and they send out an alert if they feel that it's likely to be a gunshot. And that's going to go to the district directly. It goes to Real-Time Crime Center, and a few other locations in the city where they can take a look at it. The importance is not just the officers working here in the district are getting that alert, but also Real-Time Crime Center. When they see it pop up on the screen, they can immediately start searching for nearby cameras and move it in the direction of the gunshot to see, is someone down? Does someone need help? Is there a crowd forming? Is there a fight going on? Are there cars fleeing the scene? So this is all something that's critical. If there is a homicide as a result of that gunshot, Real-Time Crime Center is best suited to try to identify a suspect leaving the scene. And they can actually go back later and see the suspect arriving at the scene, either in a car or walking. So that's pretty critical when it comes to gunshot detection. It's not just a computer system that runs quietly and sends data. It's the human interaction. And the officers receive the assignment. Their job is to go to the scene and assess it. Just like somebody on the corner saying, I just saw someone shoot a gun down the street. I think it's the neighbor down there. Well, the officer is going to listen to that, and they're going to respond in the best way they can. So it's going to be a little bit more than just saying, I can now pat down anybody I see on the street. They're going to make an assessment, just like the officers have always done, and say, is there someone that's holding something in a pocket? Does it look like they're doing something unusual? Is there a fight going on, an argument back and forth? So they make that assessment. But getting the officers on scene, making it accurate, we're pretty much at 90% accuracy when it comes to gunshot detection, that it's a real gunshot and where it's at. So that's pretty good, 90%. As far as the overview, beyond this, we received funding. So we started with a small area in the 4th District. Mount Pleasant was covered. So it was just a small 3 square mile area. But we selected a place in the city where there was more of a volume of gunshots because we really wanted to test the system. So that test took place with a previous commander in the 4th District, and he basically spearheaded the whole effort, developed a program, developed the policies and procedures for officers and supervisors to respond when needed to gunshots. Believe it or not, a lot of fireworks actually are eliminated from the system. So yes, it's possible, but the vast majority of things that are not gunshots are weeded out of the system, so the officers aren't wasting time. But one of the jobs is for the officers to collect evidence when they arrive. So the actual shell casings that they find can be used through NIBIN testing. So that's a federal program that runs through a computer, and basically it's taking like a DNA test of the bullet or the shell casing. It's going to take a look at what kind of round was fired from which gun. It can actually identify a particular gun that was used. So in some cases, we're linking shell casings to a number of shootings throughout the city. We can provide that to ATF through our task force partners, our Division of Police members, and we can be more effective in identifying, let's say, activity across different neighborhoods. So that gunshot alert, again, is going to be in less than 60 seconds. And in our case, it's shown in Cleveland that about 80% of the calls were never called in. So officers would never come down the street if the shot spotter detection didn't work. So with that expansion through ARPA funding, we have only 14 square miles. So there's an excess of 80 square miles of the city, so you can just imagine we can't cover everything. There is a substantial cost with the system. But we feel it's effective, and it is resulting in saved lives. Having officers respond with the quick clock kits they're trained with before EMS arrives is significant. So we feel that that's quite important. Commissioner Jones, you want to transition over to the Safe Smart Camera program. That's been a long-term program for us.
Thanks, Commander. So, Safe Smart Camera. So one of the things I'll tell you is that when I first started with the city, I had 2 programs. One was red light cameras, and one was video surveillance cameras. So I used to joke and say I was one of the most hated people in the city that nobody knew about. So when it comes to
Don't tell us that.
when it comes to video surveillance cameras, so when I started with the city, we had probably about 17 cameras. Today we have over 2,700 cameras. So this initiative has really exploded probably over the past couple of years. One was part of the investments from Mayor Bibb as it relates to the RISE initiative. And others were just through the year. So when we first started, we had a Homeland Security funding. So at the time, Homeland Security funding focused on critical infrastructure. So unfortunately, we couldn't cover a lot of the neighborhood streets, the neighborhood corridors, recreation centers. They were focused on main targets. So you're talking about Cleveland Browns Stadium and big high visibility targets. So for the first couple years, we had about 70 cameras that was more focused on those critical infrastructure areas. Around 2013, we picked up a lot of steam. We had council members, probably about 8 council members at the time, who decided to be pioneers and actually partner with us and expand cameras into their wards throughout the city. So again, that really grew the program. But as the commander mentioned, I can't talk more about the LED lighting. So the LED lighting project was about $34 million total. About 27 million went to replacing all LED lights in the city, well, all halogen, sodium lights, the old type of lights in the city with LED lights. 7 million was carved out for video surveillance cameras. So what that allowed us was we focused on every rec center. So every ward that had a rec center, we focused on putting cameras not only around that rec center, but those neighborhood corridors, those business districts, and also hotspots that the Division of Police let us know about. The other important impact about that is if a ward didn't have a rec center, then we looked for large parks. So when I'm looking at Ward 10, Dugan Park. So we focused on large scale parks where we could deploy cameras. So that project alone, we implemented about 1,200 cameras. One of the things I want to be very clear about is our cameras do not do any type of facial recognition. We do not have a facial recognition database. It's not something we're looking at. It's not a technology we're moving in the direction of. Facial recognition is actually governed by the state of Ohio. They have strict regulations and laws around that, so that's not something that we're looking at implementing. And also, there's a type of camera, there's a type of deployment set up where you've got to have your camera, think about when you walk into a bank, that camera's at a low level, it's focused directly to capture a face. Our cameras do not do that. So we focus on public right-of-ways. We focus on intersections, high accident areas. We focus on the neighborhood rec centers. So where anywhere could be from 12 to 15 feet up in the air. So we're not even at a level where our cameras are gonna capture those type of images. When the Sarge speaks, he'll tell you more about the Real-Time Crime Center and the work they actually do with these video surveillance cameras. As I mentioned before with the RISE initiative, so that was really another phase 2 of our video surveillance camera project that allowed us to probably add another 800 cameras within the past 2 years. So we received ARPA funding, that's probably about 2022. And I would say by the end of 23, we implemented another 800 cameras. And again, those were focused on councilman recommendations, as well as Division of Police hotspots, as well as enhancing different corridors and different areas that had come up just from new development across the city. And that's always been the focus of the camera program. One of the things we were fortunate enough via the Real-Time Crime Center and the work they do is we have great folks who go after grants. So we received a couple grants, and one of the things we focused on the grants is being more responsive because when you have a video surveillance camera, it's at a fixed location. Oftentimes we have special events, we have community concerns, we have Division of Police defined hotspots. So we focused on getting essentially quick, temporary deployable cameras that we can deploy to certain locations for, if it's up to 2 weeks, up to 3 weeks, but we can be proactive and deploy these cameras that can potentially run off of battery backup or even be hooked up to electrical. In addition to that, we actually purchased 2 trailers for the same type of effect. So if you've driven anywhere around the county, you've probably seen the county trailers that they drop off at different locations. Previously, we would actually have to reach out to the county and request that asset. And at that time, we're competing with 58 municipalities for that resource. Now we have 2 trailers of our own that we work through with the division, and we can deploy those rapidly whenever we need those. The last thing I will say about the camera program is that yearly maintenance. So we have a refresh program with that many cameras. not only do we have a maintenance schedule going on to make sure cameras are up, recording and functional, but we also want to make sure we're updating the technology with the latest and greatest. So essentially, the lifespan of our cameras are probably about 8 to 10 years. So we have a refresh cycle that looks at cameras that are anywhere, 7 years or older, and we're looking at refreshing that technology. So those projects happen yearly. One of the things that enhances our video surveillance capabilities is our license plate reader program. So again, license plate readers it's not a new technology for the city. So I would probably say about 2011, Cuyahoga County received grant funding as well as other contiguous counties. Back then, the commander and I actually served on, it was Region 2 Homeland Security Group. So there was a group where the state essentially provided funding to our contiguous counties, so Lake County, Geauga County, Lorain, Ashtabula, and ourselves. There was a license plate reader program that was established then with probably about 39 license plate readers across that region because, as we know, crime just doesn't stay in Cleveland. It travels borders, it travels different counties. So that was our first foray into license plate readers. The county manages that program. It's still up to date. We do have some legacy equipment up and running from the county. One of the things is, though, with that program, we were not only competing with our contiguous county folks, but we were also competing against the other jurisdictions within the county. Again, we were lucky enough to receive some grant funding in 2022, which allowed us to expand and purchase our own license plate reader program. So we now have about 100 license plate readers up throughout the city, essentially, again, focusing on those business corridors, focusing on those high traffic, high accident areas. And those are probably about 20 or so license plate readers per districts. We have 5 districts citywide. And one of the things the Sarge will stress to you is that the license plate readers only provide information about the tag that's on a license plate. So we don't get information about, they're not linked to other databases that will tell you personal information. We get vehicle information. A lot of times our video surveillance cameras will put that car at this intersection at this time. That license plate reader will now give the Real-Time Crime Center additional information so they can hone in and focus their investigation, or now they have follow-up and leads based on, we know who the owner of this vehicle was. So that's been a key and important resource for us as it relates to license plate readers. The other thing is, data is not kept forever. So other municipalities run different types of programs. Our data is stored for 30 days. After that, the data falls off the system. It could be a part of a case, and if it's a part of a case, that's something different that has a different records retention. But if you drive past a license plate reader today, that data is stored for 30 days and then it's wiped off the system.
Okay, we're just about out of our 20-minute allotment here. But if Sergeant Garcia, you want to cover, because you're the beneficiary of everyone here concerning all the units, your unit most benefits from the Fusus video integration system. So if you want to cover that real quick, and you have about a minute. Okay, great.
Thank you, sir. Basically, for those who don't know, the Real-Time Crime Center is basically an investigative support unit, which is designed to bring all the different types of technology that we've spoken about today and bring them into one location so we can better serve the officers and the public. We not only take all the video that comes in addition to the license plate readers, we try to take that and get a picture of what's going on and get that as fast as we can to the officers. Now, in addition to the cameras that the city of Cleveland has purchased, we have a program that we have with the public, that we actually engage the public, usually private businesses, to request if businesses wants to give us access to their camera system. We supply them with a system that allows us to view their system. This is only what that business wants to give us, and they control it. We don't control it. If the business says, I'm going to give you one camera in the front of the store, that's all we get. And at any point, the business can shut it off from us. We don't control it. That is completely on the business side. The other part of this project is for citizens. If citizens want to let us know that they have a camera in their house, they have the ability to register their cameras so that in case there is something happens on their street, and we have someone who to contact to ask them for their Ring camera or whatever private camera that they have.
If we could have the last slide, that's basically the location where you could go online, at home, at work, and take a look at our policies. Is that one up? There we go. Use a QR code, or if you want to take a photo with your camera, the actual address is below that. So that's going to cover the primary policies we have for ALPR, body-worn camera, and also for the gunshot detection system. And I'd like to reiterate that none of our systems result in tickets for traffic violations. That is not what the system is for. And we're not using it for citing people like the old-fashioned camera system used to do. Director, that's all I have.
Okay, great. Thank you. We didn't talk about this, but in the order of, or maybe we did. You want, right, well, no, I think, oh, yes, you did say you were going to go last. Okay, you could. Let's just, you all want 5 minutes, want to go this way? Yep, and then you all can duke it out for last. But we are in a sanctuary. Okay. So first we'll have, is that all right? Yes? LaTanya? Yes. Okay, so first we'll have LaTanya Goldsby with Black Lives Matter Cleveland.
Okay. Thank you. Can you all hear me? Okay, great. I would just say that, BLM Cleveland has started advocating against ShotSpotter and the use of their technology in our community, based specifically on the placement of those microphones and sensors. Currently, right now in Cleveland, there are 114 ShotSpotter sensors and microphones in our community, but they're predominantly placed in Black and brown communities, which one would believe that this software system or what have you could be inherently racist based on the particular placement of these microphones. We know that historically these communities that they claim have high concentration area or violence have been historically disenfranchised. These are communities that lack resources to housing, resources to jobs, and so we know that thriving communities have resources. And so when politicians fail to address social problems, we receive more policing in our communities, more surveillance in our communities, and more criminalization. And so this is why BLM Cleveland began to advocate against ShotSpotter within the city of Cleveland, because it has no impact on gun violence. It does not reduce the crime that we see in our community. Crime status and statistics have remained the same throughout the 4 years that we've had ShotSpotter. And so there is no quantitative data that we can link to the impact of gun violence, and it's reducing the gun violence in our communities.
Good evening, everyone. Brian Ray. It's very nice to have this big of a crowd listening to this important topic. My background is in law, obviously, but in the last several years, I've worked with a number of communities that have local ordinances that require a structured process, and usually a process that includes engagement with the community around whether and how to use police surveillance technologies. The city that I've worked most closely with is the city of Oakland. I ran a clinic with students that did a project that worked with their privacy commission to use their process. And in essence, what these processes try to do is ask several really basic questions around these technologies. The first, as LaTanya highlighted, is do they work and are they worth it? So it's a cost-benefit analysis at the beginning. What's it actually cost in terms of money? And then what are the societal costs that it might impose, including, as LaTanya emphasized, where it's deployed, and in connection with other technologies in the aggregate, are we deploying these in ways that disproportionately affect certain communities? And as Tanya highlighted, historically, policing and police technologies have been placed and therefore produce more policing in poor communities and communities of color. And so these processes and the communities that have these processes start with that question. What are we paying for this? What is it supposed to do? And is it worth the cost, both financially and in terms of what it's doing writ large in our communities. Related to that, the related question is, are these technologies and the way we're planning to use them consistent with our values, right? And these values encompass a range of things, but most prominently privacy and equity. And the equity concerns are exactly the ones that LaTanya underscored. Again, where are we deploying them? What does that mean in terms of how we're using our police presence? But correspondingly, are they providing the safety benefit that they're supposed to? If they are, of course, we want to use them. We want them to make our police force more effective, more efficient. If ShotSpotter works, then it can be a powerful tool. But one of the hard questions is it does work. ShotSpotter is a great example because they went to great lengths when they originally launched to work with a nonprofit out of NYU to make their system more private. They centralize the audio that comes out. They minimize the amount of audio. They use trained examiners to look initially at what's essentially a sound print so that they can't hear conversations offhand, and then to try to confirm that that's a gunshot, and then they send it back to the police force. That eliminated the problem of untrained officers listening to raw audio and potentially getting information that they shouldn't have. But then the question was started to raise in a number of communities, is it working, right? If it's not working, then what are we doing? Well, we're deploying police officers in a high-risk situation with assumption of a gunshot into communities that are already over-policed. So these are the kinds of questions that a process like this can kind of wrap their hands around. And then related to that, these communities put in place policies that it sounds like, and I know from working with Larry on a small project around illegal dumping, I know that the city and the police are doing a lot of really good things we want to do. But if we're not engaging the community in those processes, it doesn't allow for that back and forth and raising some issues that might get missed when you're narrowly focusing on a single technology and a single use as opposed to the aggregate. And then putting in place an accountability and transparency system that allows for that oversight, allows for that reporting out. Hey, is this doing what we thought it would do? Who's using it? Who's getting affected by it? Is it reaching the success metrics that we'd like, whether that's the larger success of reducing gun violence, which ultimately you would want, right? Or even is it, and how do we gauge the 90% accuracy? I have no basis to criticize or question that claim, but it would be nice to know, and it would be nice if there was a more independent body that was assessing that analysis, that conclusion that it's 90% accurate when it comes to ShotSpotter. So I'll stop there, but this is the kind of thing that we're starting to do with the Police Commission, and we hope that we'll have an opportunity to partner with the police in the city to do more of.
Okay, thank you very much. I am also a professor at CSU, and I'm going to discuss the Fourth Amendment and how that, what that has to say about these police technology issues. So the Fourth Amendment is the provision of the U.S. Constitution that protects each of us against unreasonable search and seizure, and that requires a warrant for, in most instances, if the police want to come into your house, look at your cell phone, things like that. The traditional view under the Fourth Amendment is if the police were looking around outside, the Fourth Amendment kind of had nothing to say about it. It wasn't an unreasonable search or seizure. Cop can stand on the street corner, just observe what's going on in the neighborhood. They can follow you down the street if they want to. It's just outside. Anybody can see you with what you're doing. The problem is that, as the Supreme Court recognized a couple years ago in a case called Carpenter, if you have a snapshot of where a person is at one point or where they are a week later, you don't learn that much about them. But if you know everywhere someone was, say every 10 minutes, 24/7 for the last year, well, now all of a sudden it's the same information, but now you can tell a lot about their life, right? Where do they spend their time? Do they go to church? Do they go to a medical facility? Maybe they see a psychiatrist. Who are they hanging out with? Do they go to a bar? How late are they at the bar, right? So it's the same information. And so the courts have referred to this as the mosaic theory. If you have one or two or three pieces of the mosaic, the puzzle, you can't tell that much. And traditionally, that's all the cops could have. They stand on a street corner, they see what's going past them, okay. But if you have 10,000 cameras everywhere in the city, and suddenly you can tell where everyone is 24/7 all the time, now all of a sudden we have privacy concerns. the government's going to be able to tell a lot about my life, right? By just looking at what's going on outside. So again, that was a case called Carpenter, and it said that if the police are gathering too much information over too long of a period of time, covering too many people, so that you really could start getting into the privacies of their life, then that, they said, is a search under the Fourth Amendment, even if it's all happening in public, and we're going to require a warrant to do that. The really difficult part for the department and for all the rest of us is it's completely unclear how much is too much, right? So when the city had 70 cameras around in public, that was not that many, right? And we've heard description of, now they have over 2,700 cameras around the city. Well, that's a lot of cameras. I mean, it's a big city, but that's a lot of cameras. So this is the concern of the Fourth Amendment. At what point does the surveillance, which may be for a good purpose, maybe like allow us to say, oh, okay, there was a crime in this location, we want to see what was going on there. But at what point does it give the capacity of the government to use it for bad purposes if they're so inclined, right? To start figuring out where a particular individual is and what they're doing, even though they don't really have probable cause to believe that they can persuade a magistrate that that person's committing a crime, right? So that's the Fourth Amendment concern. And what's a little probably frustrating for police departments is, of course, they're trying to do their job. And that rule that the Supreme Court laid out essentially means the better your systems get, the more comprehensive they get, the more accurate they get, it starts becoming a Fourth Amendment problem, because it maybe allows you to solve crime better, but it also allows you to intrude into people's privacy in a more serious and intrusive way. So that's the really difficult challenge, and I don't have an easy solution for you here, but I want to just kind of weigh in and say that's what the Supreme Court has said most recently about the Fourth Amendment and this issue of large-scale police surveillance of communities. So that's my 2 cents for now.
Good evening, everybody. Thanks for coming here tonight. I'm a two-time Cleveland resident, and I live in Columbus. I drove up for this, so it's nice to be back here. I joked around with some of our panelists that although I'm a diehard Cleveland sports fan, it's nice that the Cavs aren't playing tonight, even though I don't like that, because there probably would have been a lot less of us here if that happened. And so thank you all for coming. Thank you to Reverend Stokes for opening up this building, and particularly the sanctuary, for what I think is a crucially important issue and discussion here. I will confess I said a little prayer because I agreed to go last and sort of that cleanup here. So I said a little prayer and said, Lord, please let me have enough to say after everybody else is done here. Hopefully there will be something. So all that said, I'll be brief and touch on a few things that haven't been, and take us up to the 30,000-foot level here. One of my concerns working statewide on these issues is really almost no matter what city you go to, you're talking about technology with very serious privacy implications that keeps getting better and better over time, that is very much unregulated and unrestricted, except for police department or sheriff's office or whomever, state highway patrol policies. Now, policies don't have any force of the law. City council passes something and makes it an ordinance, well, there you go. But as you travel around Ohio, and as I talk to reporters and I talk to people who live in different communities, you kind of have a Wild West atmosphere out here in that you have law enforcement continually adopting and using and purchasing this technology, but what really restrains them from going further in regard to, we're going to surveil more people. We're going to keep the data for even longer. We're going to use it for purposes that it wasn't originally intended, or we said that it was intended for. To give you an example, with automatic license plate readers, I remember a press call about 13, 14 years ago at this point, and I remember it clearly, and it was, automatic license plate readers were just becoming a thing, and the reporter said, now the state, this is the state of Ohio that's going to be using these, and they're going to put them at certain highway exits, and the purpose is to look for stolen cars. What do you think, Mr. ACLU? I said, well, it's not going to stop there. And sure enough, here we are many years later, automatic license plate readers are used for all kinds of things. And that's the kind of thing that we always see with technology in general, and in particular when government is using this type of technology to surveil people. There are three things that are very clear about technology of all type. It gets better over time. Look at the phones in your pockets, the smartphones, your laptops, VCRs, DVD players, everything. Laptops, they get better over time. And they also get cheaper. I mean, I can certainly remember where it was one family on the block had a VCR because it was $1,000. And then years later, you could pick them up for $50 at a place like Best Buy. So it gets cheaper over time, it gets better over time, and as a result of 1 and 2, it gets more widespread. And that's what we're seeing with this type of technology over time, is that it's getting cheaper and it's getting better, as some of my co-panelists have touched on here today. So where we are right now is not where we will be with all of this in 2 years or 5 years or 10 years. This surveillance state will continue to creep. And this is a complex issue because none of us, I don't think, like crime, certainly. And there are examples where this technology can be very useful in non-controversial ways. The problem is the controversial ways that it can be used, and it has been touched on, who gets surveilled and why, and that's when we start to run into some real problems. And you know, there's oftentimes that refrain where people will say, well, if you're not doing anything wrong, what's the problem? Say, no, hold on a second here. It is not up to us to justify to the government why we don't want to be surveilled. You're flipping the argument on its head. The justification needs to be with the government explaining why they need to take this steps, why they need to spend all of this money to do these things. And so please don't anybody else fall into that trap of like, well, if you're not doing anything wrong, then what's the problem? But you know, I think, again, in a very broad sense, in Cleveland and elsewhere, what we need is city councils. We need county commissioners. We need the legislature. And I work at the State House, unfortunately. And I can tell you that's a very dysfunctional place on its best day, and particularly these days. And so any kind of regulation on any kind of this surveillance is not coming from the State House anytime soon. We're talking about automatic license plate readers. We're talking about drones. We're talking about body cameras. We're talking about all kinds of different technology, and technology still to come that we haven't even heard of. And what is also going to happen over time is this technology will continue to be integrated more and more into systems that make it much easier for law enforcement to surveil us as a result, but where many of us are left in the dark with regard to what the ramifications are, how much money is being spent, the effectiveness of this technology. And so the final thing I will say is that I think Professor Ray here was touching on it, perhaps because he mentioned Oakland, but there is out there for grassroots activists a template for getting some regulation done at the local government level. It's called CCOPS, CCOPS. Forgive me if I get the acronym wrong, but I think it's Community Control of Police Surveillance. And the idea, thank you, because I wasn't sure. and the idea is that, you know, sometimes you'll read in the newspaper, you'll see on the news, and they're like, oh, you know, automatic license plate readers. You know, I mean, what exactly is that, and what it does, and how much are they spending? And the police go ahead and they adopt this technology and they use it. And again, we're all kind of left in the dark. But what CCOPS does is it sets up a process where when law enforcement wants to use a new technology, when they want to adopt something, they come to an event very much like this, and they discuss it with the public about, you know, the costs, the ramifications, and everything else. And, you know, a couple communities, a couple cities in Ohio have adopted the CCOPS template at the city level. It doesn't always turn out right as far as the ACLU of Ohio is concerned, but at least there is a process out there for all of us as a community to learn more about what exactly is going on. Because again, it's 2024. We keep using this technology. It keeps getting better, but the regulations and restrictions on it, other than at the individual police department or sheriff's office level, is almost non-existent when you're talking about the state of Ohio collectively.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm going to try this one. Hopefully it stays on. I want to just pose a few questions during the moderated question period. And again, I'm going to remind you in the audience that we will open it up to community questions. There's a lot of discussion. I'm going to go to the City of Cleveland, to the Division of Police. There's a lot of questions around a ShotSpotter. I appreciated hearing the presentation. I think I'm going to do a couple quick clarifying questions. The first is, I think you mentioned that, and I think this was Commander Counts. Did I say that right? Did I get your title right? Thank you. That one of the things that happens is the microphone picks up the audio and it's heard at a remote facility. I'm assuming that facility is not in Cleveland. Is that right? And then alert goes to the district and to the real-time crime center if it is deemed to be a gunshot. You then said that once that happens, there's even the possibility for the cameras, the remote cameras that are detailed to the scene, to then maybe look back and see when a person arrived at the scene, when a suspect, I think was the word you said, arrived at the scene. And I just wanted to understand where the technology for the camera comes into play if ShotSpotter is in fact just an acoustic device and not a video one.
Yeah, basically when ShotSpotter goes off, it not only tells us there were gunshots in the area, it shows us the location. So we take that location in with the crime center. When we see it, we then to see if we have any other assets in the area.
Lost the microphone. Try one of those down there, maybe. Thank you.
Okay, so just to review, we basically, once we hear the shots fired, we then try to use all the other technology that we have, either from, sometimes it could be patrol car cameras, it could be city cameras, Fusus, our citizens cameras, and then we try to see if we can pick up that suspect vehicle or person in that area, either before or after the event.
The other question that I want, so that's not specifically related to the ShotSpotter technology. Those cameras are separate and apart from that.
That is correct. All the tools that we use, none of them, there's no one product that does everything or solution. It's all little pieces and parts that show us a big picture.
Well, I understand that ShotSpotter or the Smart Thinking or whatever the new company's name is does have a device that has both video and audio. So that's just why I wanted to make sure I had the clarification. CDP doesn't have a device that has video and audio from that vendor.
That is correct.
Okay. I'd also love to hear more about CDP's process of developing. Thank you, Mr. Daniels and Professor Ray for lifting up Oakland and their process, both with the CCOPs and the like. I'm really curious to know if CDP would describe for us the process by which you engage or consider engaging community in the development of policies and procedures for the programs that roll out the various technologies that you spoke about today. I heard you say that the initial pilot of ShotSpotter with Commander Kuntz in the 4th District did have a program and the development of a program and a policy. But I'd love to hear, and I'm sure the community would too, sort of the spaces and the opportunities for community to be engaged in the development of those policies.
Yes, are we speaking of policies that are already formed or policies going forward?
Both.
Okay. All policies that were formed, we have numerous community meetings, specifically in the districts monthly. We have special meetings when we have different technologies that are coming in where we engage the community. We engage through council. We engage through our community development groups. We engage through our co-chairs and the different community meetings that we hold. Also, we hold now going forward as anything, just like they were saying the technology gets better, our communication with the community gets better, which it is. And we hold meetings such as this, specifically now going forward with the CPC who reviews all of our policies and provides us feedback. We organize meetings with them and constantly meet with them also to discuss these technologies.
Lovely. So is it fair to say that for those who don't serve on the CPC or aren't a part of those conversations, that the expectation and the plan is for all policies from the division, including those that relate to this technology, will be vetted through a process from that includes members of the CPC.
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. The other question and I'm trying to be really quick with the questions. The other question that I wanted to ask, again, around ShotSpotter, I'm going to connect it to a question that I sent you previously, earlier this week. So hopefully it doesn't feel like a gotcha one. I heard Commander Counts say that we feel it's effective. I also heard Professor Ray and Mr. Daniels speak to this 90% number. And I want clarification I want to make sure that we're all clear on the fact that the 90% number is around the accuracy of the technology to accurately identify a gunshot.
That is correct.
Okay. I'd love to talk about as we dig into the cost benefit analysis, to talk about the efficacy, the effectiveness of the technology beyond just determining whether or not a gunshot has occurred, right? And how do we, as Commander Counts say, feel it's effective? What data supports that assessment?
There's multiple data points, depending on the questions that are asked. We can pull different data to either support or show that it's not effective in certain areas, depending on what the question is. One of the larger stats that we like to point at is over a dozen lives have been saved. Connection with officers getting the alert that a shot was fired before it's even called into our dispatch center, officers responding to the scene and able to provide first aid with the trauma kits that we carry in our police cars, whether it's the quick clock or the chest seals, providing information to EMS. Yes, you need to get here. This is what's going on, getting to the location and providing first aid. So how effective it is, we can judge that by how many lives that we are currently saving by getting there faster.
Okay, so can we then talk about arrest and conviction rates related to ShotSpotter and its efficacy there? Because while obviously 12 lives is important to save, and if I were injured, right, I don't mean to poo-poo that. That's major. But I would love to hear more about the division's analysis of the impact that this technology, it's pretty expensive, right? The impact that this technology has had on addressing crime, which, as far as I can tell, is what everybody thinks it's really there for.
That's a good question. I know in certain areas, specifically where I was the commander of the 1st District, in our ShotSpotter areas, we saw crime drop dramatically. And I'm not talking 5-6%, I'm talking 30, 40, 50% of violent crimes in that area. To get a overall analysis of the crime impacts of the city, I'll document that question. I can get the statistics to you to share with the community.
Okay, I love that. And I wonder because I think it would be important for us to understand, like, if it's the moment where criminals realize Big Brother is watching and therefore then the crime doesn't take place there, right? Is it, is that the reason why crime is going down? I'm not expecting you to have an answer to this, right? Or is it in fact that crime is going down because police are being are able to be better at their jobs because the technology is there?
It's important to point out that gun detection technology is not the end-all be-all. It is one tool in a toolbox that is used by law enforcement. It's coupled with active community engagement. It's coupled with more patrols in the area. It's coupled by several other law enforcement theories and procedures that we utilize to have crime decreasing in an area. So to say that crime's decreasing solely based upon one thing, I don't think we could firmly stand on that when it's a multitude of things adding, and this is one aspect that allows us to more efficiently do our jobs.
I appreciate that clarification and complete answer, because I think too often what we have heard our politicians and others say, right, ShotSpotter is really important for us to do is because it does this one thing, right? Thank you for that, Commander. I will ask one final question. And so if folks have questions that they're thinking about, the microphones are here. You can line up. I think that is the plan, as opposed to having the mic passed down the pew. We're going to ask that people line up at that microphone. But before we go to community questions, I do want to ask about the division's approach to managing, and I see a key function of law enforcement being to, and the elected and appointed officials I spoke to at the top of my remarks, balancing, right, this public safety issue and concern and the constitutional civil liberty issue, interest of the community. And I would love to know how the division has worked to ensure, if this has happened, work to ensure that officers who are in areas where ShotSpotter is being used, if those officers are receiving training specific to the constitutional issues that will arise, right? What stops ShotSpotter from being just another version, a technological version of stop and frisk?
So if I'm understanding the core of the question is, what's to stop our officers from getting a ShotSpotter alert and then showing up and just searching everybody that they see? So we constantly train our officers in constitutional policing. We constantly give updates. We have annual training. To call it annual kind of insinuates it happens once a year, but we're having multiple trainings throughout the year, not just in the updates to laws in the state of Ohio and the nation, but also we have practical exercises where our officers engage with trained professionals on real life scenarios that they can encounter. We incorporate our law department into our training to ensure that officers are constitutionally policing these areas, understand the Constitution, and understand that there are certain aspects that in criteria that they have to reach and understand before they can just go search anybody. And if there is an issue, we address it, but we get in front of this and we train our officers, and we're confident that our officers are out there properly constitutionally policing their neighborhoods.
I appreciate your presence and the candor of your responses, Deputy Chief. I almost called you Commander, and that was wrong. I want to open the floor up to community questions. I see Ms. Bickerstaff at the microphone. I will remind everybody that it would be wonderful if, I hope I modeled this, that the questions, although you may have a little bit of a preamble, that your questions actually be in the form of a question. And if you have it that you want to direct to all of the panelists, you can say it, or if it's directed specifically to a panelist, that would be helpful too. Thank you.
Okay. Good evening. Being a private investigator, I want to direct this question to the Deputy Chief about the ShotSpotter. I would like to see those statistics. And I believe that Ms. Hardaway, Dr. Hardaway asked you a question about the information and the stop and frisk. And I do understand that you said the ShotSpotter sounds out everything else. They're specifically looking just to hear the shots. But where is the other information going? Because I know, but I want you to say what you know, where the other information going of the speaking on the sounds and the information and the talking on the ShotSpotter. Because I know.
Where's
the other information? Okay, ShotSpotter, you use it, right? ShotSpotter has come into court also, okay? You use it. So let's say there's other things going on other than the gunshots, but it's picking up everything. So then it has to focus in just on the gunshots, correct? Where is that other information stored at, and how long do you keep it? I know, but I want you to say it.
I'm going to be honest, I don't know the answer of where that's stored at.
That's dangerous. Thank you.
Okay.
Somebody's listening.
That's on. Several years ago, I did some work with the nonprofit that worked with ShotSpotter to understand how they do it. Now, I don't know, things may have changed, but as I understand it, the way it works is, and part of the privacy protections they put in place as a result of that collaboration is, the police don't have access to the raw audio. The raw audio goes up to ShotSpotter. It's processed automatically, and then the trained examiner sees, as I described before, what's essentially a sound print and then they're trained to identify, is that actually a gunshot? And then only if they think it is likely do they listen to the piece of the audio. Now, and ShotSpotter is supposed to have data minimization policies to get rid of it. Now, I don't know if things have changed. It sounds like you know some things that I don't know. But I do want to emphasize something that ShotSpotter gets a lot of play because it's a weird technology, and there's been a lot of questions raised about whether it's effective, and I think those questions are really important. In the grand scheme of the things that we heard about today, ShotSpotter is chump change. I mean, Fusus and the SafeSmart cameras and the ALPRs, and Larry's correct. We don't turn on the FR capabilities that the SafeSmart camera systems have, but they're linked with ALPRs. They've got object recognition. I mean, when we think about the issues we're concerned about, these are the scary ones. ShotSpotter, there are concerns about it being used as a pretext to do other things. But in terms of its general configuration, sound is never going to be as concerning as video. And so it's the expansion of the video stuff and the capabilities of Fusus, and then the integration that Fusus offers with private cameras, Ring, and other things. Because the problem is security always can trump anything else. And so we all want to be safe, right? And our officers here all want to keep us safe. I have no question about that. It's the problem is when you focus on these things narrow by narrow, we start to aggregate them out as Gary described. And if we're not having a more structured process in which we're looking at what are they doing in the aggregate, where are they being deployed, what other things are being deployed there, are they working, and what else is happening, then we're not really wrapping our arms around that. And the policies by policies, it sounds like we've got some really good policies, but none of them are getting pulled together. My hope is that this commission can play that role, but I'll be honest, it is hard to do. This commission has a huge mandate to do a lot of things. And if we don't put in place an ordinance or something that's more structured around these specific issues, it's hard to do. Oakland has, I think, the best process, and they don't have enough money or time to do what they need to do, but they do it better than I think anybody else. So I'll be quiet now and let's hear some other questions.
I think Larry has from the city.
Yes. So just to clarify, Brian, you are correct. So we do not have access to the live sensors. So we cannot just tune into the sensors and hear what's going on, what's taking place. Also, you're also correct. So they give us that snippet of that audio gunshot, and that may be a 10-second clip, that may be a 3-second clip. As it relates to the sensors, ShotSpotter only records that for 30 hours. After 30 hours, they wipe whatever is on that sensor. So to the commander's point, we don't get access to that, so we don't have that capability of going back and looking or listening to what is taking place via those sensors.
Yes, hello. I've been a Christian. Oh, go ahead. Okay.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I just wanted to say that, based on the accuracy of ShotSpotter alerts, they do require our police department to report false positives. So if there's an alert that comes in that is not a shot or gunshot, it is mandated upon our department, our law enforcement department, to notify ShotSpotter that was not gunfire. So they are required to report those false positives. And so it would be interesting to know in that data that we're hearing, how many of those shots recorded by ShotSpotter has been determined to be false gunshot reports, and if you have that data on that.
Okay, yes. Oh, no problem. I've been a Christian community activist in the city for over 25 years. I've seen a lot in there, but I have an observation, comment, and question, and I will keep it extremely brief. I was in another community, and they were talking about the cameras of surveillance that they had out. But a positive part on that was they were able to catch a thief who had just stolen from a convenience store. Now, had the cameras not been present, they couldn't have spotted this guy going down the street, turning on a corner, going down another street. So the cameras were actually able to track this person, so they were able to apprehend that individual. The other thing was there was another robbery that was taking place. Since the cameras were was in a very good position to capture a gentleman who had just argued with an employee inside the store and had robbed the store, had came out and gotten into their car. But had the cameras not been there, they would not have captured this individual, so the police could not have gotten there quick enough to apprehend this individual. So those are some pluses that I've seen. So I just wanted to add that comment. We have a community that has gone through a lot of trauma because of police misconduct. And I talk about one particular case because this case has not been resolved. They have asked for an investigation. So I'm hoping this evening someone can help out this family. That there's a issue with police use of force with this particular family, and the daughter cannot find resolution because there is a felony that she has, and the police officer said there was, that she spit on them. Well, it was actually vomit, not proven in a court that it was actually nothing but vomit. The court didn't care. And this was under Judge Daniel Gall. So I'm asking for someone to really step up and take a look at the facts and merits of this particular case so this young lady and her mother can lead a decent life, because the daughter cannot find a job because of this particular felony. Felony expungement has not helped. So if we're talking about helping our communities, this is how you start. You take a look at the cases, you take a look at the people, you try to heal them, because this has gone on far too long. Our communities need healing. We have a lot of policies, but some of these policies have no teeth. There's nothing put in place to force accountability, because as a children, if you steal a cookie out of the cookie jar, then there's a punishment behind that. So the child changes and gets better. My question, at what point will we actually have some resolutions? Because we can I've been in tons of meetings. We can talk about this till the cows come home, but we need resolutions, and we need people to step up and make sure that the individuals in our communities, all communities, I'm not just saying ours, those that are the most affected, have those resolutions. So that's it. Thank you. So this family, I really need help.
I will. After the meeting, we can meet, and I'll provide you my information, and hopefully we can connect with them, and we could look into this for you.
Good evening. My name is Anthony Thomas. I want to thank the commission for putting on this event today, and also want to give thanks to the church family for opening up the house of worship where we can have this meeting. Sure. Okay. All right. Again, so I have taken this opportunity to come out today because of certain things that's on my heart, and I want to just be, frank with you guys. I can honestly say that I don't trust any of you. I believe that the commission has not kept black folks safe. So again, I would like everyone to know who's here today that a lot of blood has been shed. This is why the commission is here. Tamar Rice, the 137 shots that was aimed at the two people in East Cleveland, the misconduct of the police officer. This is why we have a consent decree, and I have it here. We've been under consent decree since 2015. So again, I just want to make it clear that where's the mayor at? I think the mayor needs to be here, because it was just not too long ago that he did something that was very reprehensible when he was trying to hire his boyfriend to be, I meant a friend of his to be a chief who was possibly under a federal indictment for you know, doing misdeeds to elderly people. And again, you know, as the lady said, that, you know, our community is under a lot of trauma and a lot of stress, and a lot of blood has been shed. So I want the people who are here today to understand that, you know, our Black folks have made a sacrifice for this commission to be here. Blood has been shed. A lot of blood has been shed, and a lot of stress and trauma is in this community, and we need change. And again, I don't believe it. I'm just going to end it there. Thank you.
I just had a question for one of the police officers, just about the body cams. So I know there was talk about cameras in the police vehicles, how those would turn on after like you were going 80 miles per hour, or like the guns were out or something. So I was just wondering, with the body cams on the police, first of all, like, is that just something that the police officer turns on manually, or is there something that sets that off to be turned on?
Good evening. So the body cameras have what's called a signal device in it, or the dash cameras do. So when the dash camera goes over to position 3, lights and sirens, when the gun lock is pressed and the shotgun gets released, or at 80 miles an hour, over 80 miles an hour, a Bluetooth signal comes out and will activate all the body cameras within a Bluetooth range of that dash camera. It'll automatically turn them on if they're not already on. And more than likely, based on policy, those cameras are probably pretty close to running.
I'm talking
the body-worn
a
cameras
camera on the police officer, like.
So the body-worn cameras are turned on by pressing a button, a big button in the middle of the camera twice, or they'll be automatically turned on by that fleet camera if any of those triggers happen as well.
So that's activated by the police officer, or by like.
If an officer gets a call for service, right, they get a dispatch call, they'll self-activate their cameras. If there's an emergency situation where they release the gun lock or they activate their lights and sirens, it'll send out that Bluetooth signal and it'll automatically turn the body cameras on. So there's a couple different ways that they'll turn on.
So is that something that's turned on? I think there was talk of like that being turned on during interactions with people. Like, is that something a police officer would turn on just like automatically if they're even just talking to someone, or like what's the standard for that? Do you know what I mean by that?
If I'm understanding, if me and you are just having a casual conversation, am I going to turn my camera on? For casual conversations, no, we do not. If it's an incident where we feel it could be a heated exchange or something along those lines, we are required to activate it. If we could bring the QR code back up, our camera policies are here. If we get the QR code back up there, you can read everything about the policy. And there's papers out front also.
I just wanted to point out something also that people should be aware of with regard to how the technology works. I think it's pretty standard now for every body camera to have what is called a buffering period. So what this does is it means, for instance, what we don't want is a situation where police use force against somebody. The body camera shows something's going on, a struggle, a shooting, but we don't know what led up to that. What body cameras essentially do, including in the city of Cleveland, is it will retain that, depending on how it's set, the previous 30 seconds or the previous 60 seconds leading up to that event. So I think that's a positive thing that provides at least some amount of transparency as to what's going on, because you don't want a situation, it's not good, like I said, where you have a law enforcement officer saying, no, they were coming at me with a knife, and you have the person who's been arrested or had use of force against them say, no, that's not what happened at all. So ideally, essentially what you have is a body camera that, for lack of a better term, it's always slumbering, it's always kind of turned on, but the police and others can get access to that 30 seconds or 60 seconds of footage before the event started and the camera really clicked on, for lack of a better way to put it.
So the camera is always on in some capacity?
We have a line of people behind you. I don't want to cut you off, but I do want you to just to be cognizant of the fact that there are other people behind you. Are you close to wrapping?
I'm close to wrapping up.
Okay, one last question, please.
Okay, so I guess basically what I'm getting down to is like, what's stopping police from just not turning on their cameras, or will footage exist if, like, what's stopping police from not turning on their cameras because they're doing something they're not supposed to be doing?
There's a 30-second buffer. Our officers are required to turn it on. If they don't, we hold them accountable. They get put up on departmental charges, and we discipline them.
Okay.
I'm sorry. No, I just wanted to tilt it. That's okay. So thanks everybody for coming in and being a part of this discussion. I think it was very important for the community. My question, because I guess my comment first, a lot of what was said that kind of sent alarm signals up in my brain with regard to ShotSpotter. Fusus is even more terrifying because of the notion of, are we moving towards the plot of 1984? Like, are we moving towards the idea of Big Brother constantly watching and order over, proactive measures? So that kind of leads into my question. What initiatives are in place to target gun violence proactively rather than exclusively reactively? Because I think a lot of the surveillance gizmos and gadgets we were talking about that have very expensive price tags don't necessarily target gun violence. They kind of target how do we react to it. Because I was made aware recently of New Era is an organization locally who has an initiative of community patrols that showed in the communities that they had these community-led patrols where we are responsible for protecting ourselves. They found that there was a 75% decrease in crime in those areas. So I kind of just wanted to know, maybe if you guys know some proactive measures that are there, but also I think on this side with LaTanya, you kind of mentioned that there were some proactive measures that are targeting gun violence within the communities versus reactive. Thank you.
It's a very, very good question. So recently with Mayor Bibb's RISE initiative, investing in safety for everybody, and his summer safety plan, we're taking a whole of government approach. So it's just not cops out trying to police an area safely. We are taking a whole of government approach. So what that means is we're using our data analytics. We're looking at where the high crime areas are, and we're getting out there proactively with the streets department. And we're doing, essentially it's referred to as crime prevention through environmental design. There's precursors to why crimes are committed. Is it because the street lights aren't on, so it's a little bit darker in that neighborhood, and criminals can commit these crimes without being a light being shined on them, and we're gonna have streets come out and replace these street lights? Is it because lots are overgrown and criminals can hide behind bushes and ambush citizens as they're walking down the street? So we're gonna get out there and we're gonna cut back these bushes, and we're gonna take away these opportunities for criminals to feel comfortable and feel safe enough to commit these crimes. And then we're going to couple that with increased patrols in the area, and not just by officers out there making traffic stops and things of that nature, but we're going to have our community officers out there interacting with the community. We're going to do community walks out in the neighborhood, speaking with the neighbors, speaking with the residents in that area, finding out, working directly with them, because who better knows the community than the people that live in it? So we want to come out, we want to be on your front porch with you, asking you, what do you see? Now, let's be honest too, a lot of communities have their own culture in the community. We are a melting pot in the city of Cleveland. And when we go into a community, we ask them, what do you think can solve this problem? and we take direct feedback from the residents. And it's not just we go back and we go, okay, they told us to do this, we're going to do this. We're going to sit there with you. We're going to work out this plan. We're going to see what works in other communities. We're going to make suggestions, and we're going to work hand in hand with the community members to solve this problem as one city. We are Cleveland. You are Cleveland, and we're going to work together to get these neighborhoods safer. And you'll see us out throughout the whole summer and going into the winter months to keep the progress we have going.
Hello, hi. Thanks for inviting me here. Couple comments and then one question. First comment is I love the police department. I could not imagine living in this city without the police department. They come into a situation where we're running out, they're running in. They save lives. Second comment, I love technology. I wish all this technology could be in every square foot of the city of Cleveland. Okay? This solves crime. This is a no-brainer type of technology. I talked to other people from other countries. And personally, my background, I'm trained as an electrical engineer. So I love technology. I have a brother and also myself, we were trained in military technology. This is all military technology. This helps police put criminals behind bars. And from my guess, people behind bars can't shoot people. We need them behind bars, okay? Now, there was a comment saying all of this technology is within predominantly black neighborhoods. Yes, that's where all the shootings are.
That's a racist comment from your own people.
That's a fact.
That's not a fact. That's not a fact. We can't even use like you talking.
Look.
No, you're fine, Brenda. Please, you don't have to get up and leave. No, Brenda. Sir, what I would like to remind you of are the rules that the pastor set at the outset of this. I appreciate your opinion, right? But as you can tell, your comments have been a bit inflammatory.
Well, that's
and it's fine. All I'm asking you is just to be mindful of what the pastor said.
Apologize if I said someone. But thirdly, this is my question. So, I specifically love the license plate reader technology. I've been wishing for it for years. So the question is, can you give me a scenario? If my car was stolen right now, I would think the license plate reader technology would be able to help find that car. In addition to stolen cars, I think it would definitely help with Amber Alerts. Could you guys give me a scenario on how that would play out? Thank you.
I can give you a specific scenario. As a commander of the 1st District, we had an Amber Alert where a mother threatened to harm herself and her children, and we were able to use license plate readers to track her from Cleveland, Ohio, over the border into Indiana, where Indiana sheriffs were able to safely approach her at a gas station, render aid to her to get her to the hospital for mental health evaluation and get the children into the custody of their grandma so they're safe and sound.
If I could just really quickly on the other side, I don't know if for the car stolen, my mother kind of famously had her car stolen at the UH Valet last summer, and it was reported immediately. License plate readers did not help recover her car. Instead, what did was a neighbor who saw her car 5 days later up on a sidewalk within the city of Cleveland said, "I think I saw your car on the sidewalk." So technology doesn't always do exactly what we think it will do. But it didn't.
So I love technology and I love our law enforcement. I think that they are trying to do their job effectively. The challenge that we have is we need to wrap our arms around how is this stuff working and is it working well? So with ALPRs in particular, the chief of Oakland Privacy Commission was pulled over, pulled out of his car, slammed against it based on an ALPR read that was incorrect, and in a pretty serious situation, accused of being a car thief when in fact he wasn't. So these technologies don't always work. They are getting better, but as Jonathan pointed out, when they get better, they create more surveillance. And to the earlier question around what else can we do to try to get at the issues that we all care about, gun violence and crime, the question that we need to be asking is, are these technologies the best way to do it, right? Is policing the best way to do it? And more often than not, the answer is no. We need police, absolutely. We need police, and we need some of these technologies tactically deployed to help us do policing when it's necessary, but that's not going to solve the problems. And then the question becomes, do we need to spend all this money on the sharp end of the symptoms of the problem, or should we be spending it more on tactics and issues that might get ahead of it and prevent it, right? I mean, I love what the police describe, but if we're talking about criminals, we're talking about the wrong thing, right? We're talking about people, and we need to help people not get in a position where they feel the need to commit crimes, and communities to avoid that. And surveillance technologies only ever deal with the end result, not with the problem.
Hi, everyone. Thank you all for coming tonight. It's been very informative on both sides of the coin, so I appreciate that. I have two questions, one for each of the gentlemen on the left. If you don't mind, I'll ask the first one to you. And I'm sorry, I'm getting older. I can't read your name, so I apologize. In reference to Carpenter, you used a year as an example of data being held too long. Is 30 days something that's reasonable in your opinion? Because that seems like the longest that the CPD has mentioned. I heard 30 days, 30 hours. Is 30 days acceptable? If it's not, can you tell me what would be acceptable in your opinion?
So it depends, how much time, what type of data, right? So how detailed is the data? You got to kind of put it all in the mix, right? So ShotSpotter data, for example, doesn't tell us much about, who's in the community or what's going on in the community, just a gunshot. The real issue there is...
We could use cameras.
Yeah, cameras. So for,
cameras.
The Carpenter case said that, tracking someone's location for more than 7 days is definitely a search. Less than that might be, depend how intrusive it was, but they picked a number and said 7 days. So for 7 days, you can kind of follow somebody around in public constantly. That's going to require a warrant, they said. So that's one number they gave.
Okay, thank you. And then the second one is for the second, Mr. Daniels. So that one I can see. Your concern seems to be the abuse of the systems, and I would agree that these systems shouldn't be abused. Cleveland has been using them for nearly 2 decades, it sounds like. Can you give us a few specific examples of the city of Cleveland abusing cameras?
Thank you for the question. Part of the problem with trying to determine that is that we don't have laws that, for instance, require disclosure of that data, of publicly available audits, of things of that nature. My belief is that the overwhelming amount of law enforcement does not want to use this technology to surveil people and do bad things. The problem is when that does happen, and there are certain things sometimes that happen in society. Let's say outside forces. We can very much use 9/11 as an example, which is very much sort of, coincided with what has become this surveillance state. It was like technology intersecting with this very serious matter that understandably got people worked up. Look, I was in Manhattan on 9/11. I understand. And what you saw there was, protests after 9/11. You saw, law enforcement really ramp up its activities in a variety of ways. But so much of this is done, behind the scenes, behind closed doors. Many times you can get this through public records requests. That is, if you get this in a timely manner. Is there some big splash case like a major summer movie that says, oh, look, we uncovered this abuse that's going on that's just absolutely horrific, and we should all be legitimately shocked by it? I don't know of those types of cases, but I am worried about that type of thing happening. We do have a history, both in Cleveland and in Ohio and nationwide, of law enforcement using technology and tactics for the wrong reasons, and I don't think any of us want that to be repeated, and we can't stop it, but we can minimize it. When we talk about such things, is 30 days the appropriate amount of time? Should it be shorter? In some situations, should it be longer? I've read through an awful lot of police department and sheriff's office policies out there about this type of technology. I'll say quite frankly, and believe me, my job and my DNA is to be skeptical of government and police. That said, I've read through a lot of policies at the law enforcement level, and there's widespread agreement with people like the ACLU about what those policies look like. There's a lot of, not perfect, but a lot of decent policies out there. But it goes back to what I think is the fundamental problem. There's no laws or very little laws governing this. I think we can find a place where law enforcement, you're never going to get the ACLU of Ohio comfortable with this technology. That's just not going to happen. But we can also recognize that law enforcement can use this technology for non-controversial type situations, but let's put some parameters. Let's put some guardrails on here so it can't be used, abused in a way that does become a very real problem. So, is there some big, like, oh, look, yeah, let me show the, these files of these, horrific abuses of this type of technology. I'm not aware of that happening in Ohio, but I'm very concerned about the possibility that will happen. And is it too much? Is it such a wild idea to say, you know what, we need some laws in place to govern this, not just police policies? I don't think that's a huge ask.
Yeah, thank you both for I just want to make sure that what you're saying, though, is the city of Cleveland has never abused one of the cameras to your knowledge.
Well, I don't, I'm not somebody who's poured through City of Cleveland, documents and technology, but, but I have skepticism, based on other experiences with police.
It's just a yes or no question. That's it.
So we have four people in line, and then that will be it. Please, if we could be as brief as possible.
Being brief as possible, there's an array of surveillance shot, all type of technologies. The question is, oftentimes when you purchase with companies, someone's doing the analyzing of the data. My question is, not only the companies that you collaborate with, oftentimes, is there any, I'm talking to the city of Cleveland about all these different diversified technologies. Is it any collaboration maybe with the FBI or other law enforcement agents besides yourself?
All right, so collaboration with federal partners, local partners, regional partners, that's something that we do all the time. If you read the news and all the big cases that we cracked, very seldom is it Cleveland alone solving the case. Getting the big drug bust where we have millions of dollars and tons of cocaine, guns, money, everything else. So it's a federal task force, it's federal partners. So there is a sharing information. That's just how law enforcement is. We're much more effective when we're leveraging all our partners together and focus on crime in Cleveland. So I think the answer to what you're saying is yes, we do share information.
Second question, thank you, is that you said that the body cameras initiate under certain circumstances. You said the camera for the police cars is activated upon sirens turned on. Is there any other situations, speed, erratic behavior of the vehicle, where the police cars cameras turn on? Only is activated when the sirens come on.
So there are some different triggers that will cause them. We talked about that earlier. It was the position on the light bar when the lights and sirens are on. The gun lock, so the shotgun. So most cars have a shotgun kind of in the middle of the car. So anytime that button is pressed to release that shotgun, that'll send that signal out. And then there's a speed as well.
Thank you for your time.
Hello, everyone, and welcome. Two hopefully very quick questions. The first is in reference to gun detection. What's the average time from alert to dispatch?
It's instantaneous. As soon as we get the alert, it goes into our CAD system, which alerts our officers to respond to the scene.
Okay. Second is, yes.
So it's not to get to dispatch, but for officers to be dispatched in a while.
It's the gunshot technology is integrated into our dispatching system. So in the computer in the vehicle, it will automatically, as soon as an alert is actualized, it automatically creates an incident for the officers to respond to. So I would have to, if so that it's instantaneously created. As far as them responding, I can get you that information, so I can get you an accurate timeline of the time they receive it to the time they get there. I would not like to guess on something like that with being accurate, but we're taking our notes and we're going to get all the answers to the questions.
Okay, second question. So seemed like there's a common theme about hearing that Cleveland is sick, ill, hurting. How is this technology helping to where instead of you seeing the wounds, you're actually seeing the person's heart? And instead of it being, what's wrong, how can I help you?
So our officers are continually put in different forms of community engagement training. We have crisis intervention training, specialized crisis intervention training, and the officers you're seeing now, this is all they've known. They only know the cultural sensitivity. They only know the crisis intervention training. And we're consistently working with our officers on the empathy portion and coming in the follow-up. Each district has a May Dugan advocate ingrained into the district where they're following up with the victims and the families of victims of violent crimes in the neighborhoods where these violent crimes take place.
Some of my concerns were partially addressed by Mr. Daniels a little bit earlier. Just thinking about the misuse and abuse of this data from these surveillance technologies. If we were to assume that these technologies, these tools were, completely efficacious and were completely ethical, and there were no concerns on those fronts, there would still be the possibility of this data being misused, being accessed by bad actors. And so it sounds like from what Mr. Daniels was saying that we don't currently have any sort of like legal protections in place to make sure that, say, for example, an officer or an employee of Cleveland Police is accessing this data and perhaps using it, for example, if they were to track an ex-partner, or if some other government entities were using this data to track the movement of folks of certain political persuasions. It doesn't sound like there's any legal mechanisms in place on that front. But another thing that that would have been a question, but one of the things that I'm concerned about in addition to that, which I do want to ask about, is with any type of technology like this that's on a network, this data is being stored. We don't know where it's being stored. We, as the public, we don't know where it's being stored, processed, and then being able to be accessed different places. What kind of mechanisms are in place to provide some level of insurance to the public? We can't, if my data is breached by Netflix or Google or something like that, I'm essentially opting into using those products, but I can't opt out of these cameras tracking where my car is being moved. So, how can we be assured that bad actors will not access this data?
So as part of any technology contract, especially in these times, there are security ramifications built into these contracts where our vendors are held liable if there's data breaches that occur. One of the things that happened probably 2 years ago, Kronos, which does timekeeping for not only the city, but numerous cities around the country, they had a data breach and everybody's time information couldn't be entered for probably a good month or so. Those penalties kick in, and those penalties are costly. One of the things is we have our own cybersecurity team that looks at this type of infrastructure that we have in place. So not only do we store data in secure offsite cloud locations, we also have our own data centers that are secure. They go through security audits. We have state auditors who come in. We're in the midst of a state audit right now via our data centers and some of our security policies. So that's something that we take seriously, and we continuously monitor and then make changes to whether our own infrastructure, whether even security practices. So there's phishing schemes that we send out to all our employees just to be aware. So employees who fall victim to these things go through additional training, because this time it was us, testing them. Next time it could be a bad actor who's then to get access to a network. So security is something we take very seriously as it relates to the data with all our systems, not just related to the Division of Police, but the entire city of Cleveland.
Okay. And as a follow-up question, and this might be covered by what you just said, but I'm thinking about who has access to any of this data or any of these systems. Are there what kind of say for example, if police wanted to wiretap an individual, they would need to get a subpoena. There was some legal mechanism there in order to be able to do that. Is there anything of the sort for accessing this data broadly?
Yeah, so the biggest thing is from our systems, there's always audit controls, there's always audit trails. So for instance, I'll use the body-worn cameras. As a patrol officer, I'm able to upload video, but I can't see anybody else's video. Then you may have somebody who's at a sergeant level who is able to see all the video of the folks who report to them. Again, everything is tracked in that system. So essentially, myself, if I log into the body-worn camera system, I watch a video, I typically put a note in the comment section that says, hey, I viewed this video for these reasons, because at any time, whether it's internal affairs, whether it's the chief's office, somebody can say, hey, Larry, why were you looking at this video? So there's audit trails, there's timestamps on all our systems, everything from video surveillance to body-worn cameras to our license plate reader system. So it's not that the officers have carte blanche just to log in and say, hey, I'm going to, run these plates and do X, Y, Z. Again, as the commander mentioned and the DC mentioned, at some point, these folks will come up in disciplinary charges for misusing these systems. It's similar to the LEAD system. The state of Ohio has a LEAD system that if an officer goes in and says, hey, I'm going to run my ex-spouse, and they don't have a just cause to do that, there's consequences. So those same protections are built into the systems that we deploy.
Okay. Thank you.
So I think that is the last of our questions. I want to thank you all for taking the time to ask such thoughtful questions. I really, really appreciate being in community always. If we could just give our, did you have something, Pete?
I'm just going to close.
I was just going to say, if we could give our participants a final round of applause.
And I just want to second that on behalf of the commission. Oh.
I apologize. If someone still had additional questions and you want follow-up, our public affairs officer here from the chief's office can entertain that, and he'll make sure the CPC gets the response and forward it to you.
Okay.
Sergeant Diaz, he's our public information officer for the Division of Police.
Great, thank you for that. And I just wanted to say thank you to everybody who's here on the panel from the division and the great questions from the audience. And on behalf of the CPC, to thank you all. And also, we do have our executive director reminded me that we have a report from 2021 from a previous commission around surveillance technology. It's on our website. You can access that pretty easily. And other than that, just I'm here. Director Goodrick is what?
There's a survey for police pursuits that there's a QR code for it on
outside.
outside.
Yeah, so there's a QR code outside. You can check it out. You can fill out that survey. There's going to be another event on June 20th. The location to be determined, but it's around vehicle pursuits, police pursuits. And we're here right now. Feel free to talk to us or reach out to the staff after today. Right now, just me. The co-chair was here earlier. Yeah, just me. Executive director's here. We have 2 staff members here as well. Thank you. Thank you all.